The climate question is in an hour.
我是张毅。6日本科技指出，保障国家粮食安全是一个永恒课题，任何时候这根弦都不能松。目前，中国深耕备中，从南到北陆续展开，各粮食产区把保障粮食和重要农产品稳定安全供给作为合理大事，加快提升粮食综合生产能力。2月5号是中华民族的传统节日元宵节，中国各地举办丰富多彩活动，欢度元宵佳节。在寺院出田，人们表演当地流传千年的民间舞蹈《舞龙看九里》，祈福新的一年五虎丰登。在江西吉安，为活动安全教育当地传统民间灯彩、毛钱花灯也精彩上演，人们一起开灯谜总汤圆，祝福新的一年越走越好成果。北京石景山的千年驼铃古道，海南海口的元宵游园会，其他架霓虹闪烁。在上海大家逛水乡古镇开灯谜，别有一番乐趣。在浙江杭州，人们赏彩灯、看市集、行非遗，过一个热闹喜庆的元宵节。在位于黑龙江脚下的新疆监狱，厕所表演足有2千场，期待拉上的元宵节升级大力不断。在人民德宏，各族群众用无差的
시리아의 지원이 되겠습니다.
The whole point of the Messiah is that he is a member of the human race, not Yahweh himself and not an angel. He is an expression of the one Yahweh. Is one, or a member of the human race. The profound truth in all this is that amazing thing Yahweh has chosen to do with a human being begotten personally by him. It is the devil who keeps saying, Christ is too good to be man or mere man. The devil is the inveterate enemy of the human race. He has been relentlessly opposed to mankind as the pinnacle of God's great creation. But if Yahweh so decrees that he has a radiantly human being can forgive sins and raise the dead, performing all sorts of miracles. He can do this, as Christ did, as the one God's human agent and plenipotentiary. I think that there is a great danger that scripture on this point about the human Messiah Christ is discarded. And I hope to show this is what in fact happened when Orthodox scholars write whole books to defend the ancient and classic Trinitarian idea that Christ pre-existed as the Son of Yahweh and then assumed human nature, the incarnation, capital I. I maintain that one can only begin to get such a theory off the ground if, one forgets who it was Yahweh promised as Saviour throughout the
The fundamental industry and information technology R&D spending of these firms surpassed 77 billion yuan in 2022, 7.7%. This rake in 141.5 billion yuan in profits in 2022, increasing by 3.3%. Celebrated female Long performed at the Kennedy Center Concert Hall to kick off his 2023 International Tour. During a special and celebrating the performance at Stanford University, a concert at Walt Disney Concert Hall in Los Angeles, and a concert with the San Francisco Symphony. Following these concerts in the U.S., will give a 120-day tour in China in April and May.
Welcome to the Bridge. Some conversations on culture, life, and everything in between. Welcome to the Bridge. We are Tecsun and West. My name is Jason, and we're originally from Southern California. Beautiful Jersey. Stay with me.
This is I'm from the northeast part of China, and I'm speaking to everyone from the Innisfail today.
Right before you get your podcast, if you like the show, then consider pushing the like button or giving us 5 stars. Suggestions, comments, anything you would like to share, email welovethebridge@gmail.com. We love the bridge.
What's interesting is that I would say, coming from California, that you don't seem too strong in the accent. And that might even seem like a compliment.
Well, depends on how I want to take it.
Well, if you're from England, you would say Jason has an accent. And if I meet someone from Newcastle, I'm going to say he's got an accent. So, like, they are England and English. So, I think in England, they have multiple accents and they have an accent for someone else. So, accent is good. According to an article we rely on CG.com, having a strong accent is part of one's career. Did you know that?
Arbeiten Vietnam glaube, dass die brasilianische Regierung den Staat der einerseits sagte sich erfreut, dass er während seiner Amtszeit in Vietnam einen Beitrag zur Entwicklung der Beziehungen zwischen den beiden Ländern geleistet habe. Ende 2018 betrug das bilaterale Handelsvolumen etwa 4 Milliarden US-Dollar. Jetzt liegt diese Zahl bei 6,78 Milliarden US-Dollar. Der Botschafter gratulierte Vietnam zu seinen Erfolgen beim Kampf gegen die Covid-19-Pandemie sowie bei der sozioökonomischen Erholung. Nach Angaben des Ministeriums für Planung und Investitionen hat Vietnam im Januar 153 neu registrierte Projekte mit ausländischen Direktinvestitionen SWI von 1,2 Milliarden US-Dollar bekommen. Dies entspricht einer Steigerung von 48,5% von Projekten und dreimal mehr des registrierten Kapitals im Vergleich zum Vorjahreszeitraum. Die ausländischen Investoren haben in 17 von insgesamt 21 Wirtschaftsbereichen in Vietnam investiert. Davon macht die Verarbeitung und Fertigungsindustrie ca. 719 Millionen US-Dollar aus. Die Maschinenmodelle Produktionsabstand beträgt mehr als 64% des neu registrierten SWI-Kapitals. Sie hat ungefähr
这是张文以前的服务分数是2万岁，我以前海关2位，现在我们这个机制2万2个人员1分钟这就是现在从2月6号起，中国推动全国旅行社及在线旅游企业。
It should be spelled the way Americans WADDER water. Most Americans say water. Would you like some water? It's with a D, but that's not the way most English people say it. They say water, or they say depending on their accent. They drop the T or you hear a T.
Yeah.
And in America, you have a D. So, like, people don't even realize until it's pointed out by other people that they're not saying things. I was totally unaware. Completely unaware that I was using a D in the word water.
Yeah, they say it's like a more stiff T.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't pronounce T. It's like or softer T or softer T sound. You know, like water, but it's not like Wade. You know, there are a lot of videos that are teaching people about accents or how to sound like a native speaker. I guess I can talk about that in more details later on because I have a lot of opinions.
I think eventually we need to get into China too. What does accent mean here? Because I want to say, before I read this article, I was a little bit. First thing, I think that one of the things we need to point out here is there always a new way to help level the field of equality that we're always re-examining, and this is something I hadn't really thought very carefully about. I had examined this at an international level, and I was like, yes, I'm trying to, accept, that's a really cool accent from this other country in English, and I'd been just spending my whole life doing that. I was like, okay, with an accent, but inside the United States, I had a little bit of bias towards folks from different parts of my own country until I read this article. After I read this article, I realized that I was not being fair. And that's, up until I read this article, I was probably a little judgy about folks from the South sometimes. And I was like, ha ha ha, they've got a southern accent. Or like, oh, that's charming, they have a southern accent. And I realized now that that was not appropriate.
Yeah.
And I'm actually glad that I took up this issue because I realized that people from different parts of my own country deserve to be treated with the respect regardless of what state that they were raised in.
Absolutely. Same thing with, sometimes people say, for people who have lived in both China and the U.S., they would say, Dongbei people, like people from the northeast part of China,
Yeah, where you're
are
from.
kind of like southern people in the United States.
Is that right?
They're very musically talented, and they're usually cracking jokes, and their accent is very infectious. So a lot of people would, like, if they hear Dongbei accent, they're like, oh, you must be this, this, and that.
Yeah.
Nowadays, I think,
Is your character like this? Your personality's like this because you're from there, huh?
yeah, like, you must love drinking, or you must be very good at drinking that. It's definitely not all true.
Not all, so there is some remnant of truth in there.
There is some truth to it, like some of the stereotypes that we do like, like people.
Humorous.
We're humorous, we're at least outgoing.
That's what I've heard, yeah. From other Chinese people, I've heard people from Dongbei are funny people.
When I do stand-up comedy, it's a little, usually when Chinese people find out that I am from the northeast part of China, then they're like, oh yeah, then of course you're funny. I'm like, do not negate the effort I put into my comedy just because I'm from Dongbei.
Well, the Chinese yearly New Year gala is always has two components in it that are Dongbei related. One is a Dongbei song, and another is a Dongbei comedy skit.
Yes.
And they're always, every year that I've been watching this, I've seen there's a Dongbei song, and everyone starts singing the Dongbei song for the next week or two. And there's always a Dongbei comedy skit because Dongbei people are considered to have not just an act. Okay, can I throw it? Because you probably hear it all the time. I want our listeners to hear it. Some of the things that Dongbei people are known for, and these are the stereotypes, we can go through them, and you can tell me how they are true or not true. Funny folks.
Yeah, let me be the judge.
They like to drink. The men are really tall, strong, and let's say tough-minded. Like a strong people. And what I understand from the economic background is it used to be the wealthiest place in China for a period of time, but now it's just on par with most other provinces. So are those? What is true and not true about some of those stereotypes?
My dad and most of his friends are my height. They're shorter.
Oh, really? So the Dongbei men aren't all these big, buff-looking dudes?
No, of course not. There's taller ones, there's shorter ones. Dongbei used to be, the northeast part of China used to be wealthy at the beginning of the People's Republic of China, right after
the situation in many villages. We already started to deliver medical items to our health facilities, which are full of injured people and out of our control. Actually, we have like more than 4,000 injured and an immediate health care. Everybody still in the States for now because we are not getting any information about many.
De manera tranquila, profesional y no enérgica. La vocera también alegó que un globo avistado en América Latina tiene fines civiles y que el mismo se desvió de su ruta prevista y que entró en los cielos de América Latina y el Caribe por error. La Fuerza Aérea de Colombia dijo en un breve comunicado el fin de semana que se había detectado un posible globo en su sistema de defensa aérea el viernes por la mañana. Desde Washington para Radio y Televisión Martínez habló Michelle Xavier.
Atención que el gobierno de los Estados Unidos ha expresado sus condolencias a las poblaciones de Turquía y Siria a medida que continúan las labores de rescate en las zonas afectadas por un potente terremoto de 7.8 en la escala Richter. Informa Judith Martín Rodríguez.
Estados Unidos sigue muy de cerca la devastadora situación que viven Turquía y Siria luego del fuerte terremoto de hoy. Según afirmó el secretario de Estado Anthony Blinken, desde el gobierno están coordinando sus recursos para ofrecer una respuesta integral a las localidades damnificadas, aunque la asistencia inicial en Turquía ya está en marcha, mientras que las organizaciones humanitarias apoyadas por Estados Unidos en Siria están respondiendo a las consecuencias del terremoto. En tanto, el presidente Joe Biden ha expresado su pesar por la pérdida de miles de vidas y la devastación causada por el terremoto. Además, y según ha escrito en su cuenta de Twitter, ha ordenado a su equipo que continúen monitoreando la situación en coordinación con las autoridades turcas para brindar toda la asistencia necesaria. Y es que Turquía vive hoy uno de los peores días en su historia reciente cuando un fuerte terremoto ha sacudido el sureste.
Voyagé beaucoup avec Jean-Claude à sa mission en Afrique. Vous pensez que ça c'est un problème général en Afrique ou c'est un problème général en Afrique? Je vais te donner un exemple facile. Oui. J'ai un de mes frères qui est très proche du président Alassane. Et c'est de la Côte d'Ivoire. Voilà. Ouais. Il est le chairman d'une banque, d'une grande banque. Alors, on s'assoit avec lui. Je lui dis, mon vieux, nous avons un programme qui va nous aider, vous aider au pays à accroître les revenus du pays. Donc c'est un logiciel, quand on met ça dans le système, ça va vous aider à accroître les revenus du pays. Le vieux se moquait de moi. Il dit, mais mon père, c'est la mère. Vous savez, chez nous, ce qui va se passer. Dès que vous placez ces programmes-là dans le système des revenus, ceux-là même qui travaillent là, vont vous dire que depuis que vous avez placé ça, ça ne marche pas. Maintenant, on est et ça, c'est le mamie le sage de la Côte d'Ivoire. Voilà. Et il dit, mon père, non, chez nous, ce qui se passe, c'est plus fort que ce que non. Alors, papa m'explique. Vous savez que j'ai travaillé quelque part. On devait voyager avec le tourisme d'Israël. Mais quand on devait voyager, ma mère est décédée. Je n'ai pas pu voyager. Maintenant, après, j'ai dit que voilà l'argent qu'on m'avait donné à un des responsables. Voilà l'argent qu'on m'avait donné pour voyager.
First, we decide where we want to go. And we need to know the best way to get there. Hi, my name's Adam Barone. I'm the owner of Innisfail, we're the highest rated precious metals firm in the country. We teach people how to own physical gold and silver. Now, we won the Best of Trustmark Award 4 years in a row because we educate our clients on how to find gold and silver the right way. We don't pay celebrity spokespeople millions of dollars. We'd rather pass that value on to you. Call 800-900-8000 and speak with one of our experts. We'll send you a free gold kit along with our latest #1 national best-selling book, The Great Devaluation. Call 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000. Get the best information, the best process, the best service, the best value. Call Advantage Gold at 800-900-8000. Call 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor. Consult with your financial advisor before investing.
Call 800-900-8000.
Frustrated trying to get business capital? Want to take the slow process and rejection out of the equation? GCNLoans.com removes the slow, irritating approval process. Instead, get quick, simple funding. Powered by David Allen Capital, 80% of our pre-qualified clients are approved in days. Pre-qualify at GCNLoans.com and get your money this week. It's that easy. GCNLoans.com. That's GCNLoans.com.
Five companies control over 90% of the media. And they fire journalists all the time. Once upon a time, journalists in every city hall or state houses, and on and on and on. You don't get them anymore. They're fired. There's hardly any news out there. I
I don't know about a football player that got a heart attack. That's the news. How's Johnny dead? I hope he's doing well. Haven't heard him. So I'm going over this because, again, it's very important. I'm a bit of a trend forecast. I've been at this for 43 years. Selling books. Trends 2000, trend tracking, weekly magazine. I've had it a long time. They don't teach trend forecasting at Harvard, Yale, nowhere. Princeton, Harvard, Princeton, Yale. What do you mean, bullets, bombs, and banks? Not Harvard, Princeton, Yale? Not yet, that one. Oxford, Cambridge. No, you know why? They don't know how to forecast trends. Look how the year just ended. The stupid baloney you heard from the mainstream media. This is what happened in 2022. What do I care what happened? What's going to happen next? What does it mean? What do I do? No, we don't know anything about that. The reason they can't teach it in schools is I don't know how to. But if you get a degree in history, remember, I was in Virginia, companies and war stuff.
Yeah.
So, like, you have, everything is and that's what a pirate would say, arr.
Okay.
So, like, if you have the cliche Western pirate accent, sounds a lot like the Beijing accent. So, a lot of foreigners feel like everyone in Beijing has a little bit of a pirate.
Maybe we really do.
So, within the United States, we have a lot of these ideas and cliches, too. I don't want to expound on them too long, because maybe for our Chinese listeners, they might be interested. So I'll try to give a balanced amount of time to it. So within the United States, if you are from the South, a lot of people, there are two things that come up, cliché stereotypes, which are not necessarily true, and probably are not. One is that all Southern people are really charming, especially the older ladies, or the older gentlemen. They'll be like, open the door, invite you in for tea.
Yeah.
So it's very associated with the kindness. But there's also another side to that. A lot of times people associate the non-sophisticated Southern accent as being associated with a very low level of education. So that is one of the things I think Stephen Colbert was trying to escape. The idea that where he's from in the South means or is associated with not having been well-read, which is not true.
Yeah.
You can have people in California who are well-read and not well-read, and you can have people in Kentucky who are well-read and not well-read. So, education levels shouldn't be buried in accents, because people with different accents can have varied levels of education. People in New York or that area are oftentimes considered to be one, rude, and two, so it's not necessarily true, and two, because they seem to be in a hurry and don't have time for other people, and also be very tough. So, you have the cliche in lots of movies. This is not one movie. This is in hundreds of movies. I'm walking here. Yeah. So, you have the New Yorker who's, very willing to call out social injustice as it applies to them in public places.
That's probably why I like New York a lot. It reminded me of home.
Oh, wow. Okay, so Dongbei Ren are, also...
Dongbei and Beijing both.
So, oftentimes I'm told, I guess I'm from California, so it's hard for me to say that, but Californians are considered to have their own uneducated level. So, if you're like, whoa, man, that's totally cool, dude, so that, gives away your... Probably not the most educated person. Yeah. But Californians are often considered haughty by other Americans. Yeah, there's this idea that Californians are excessively haughty and arrogant folks. So that's the negative accent. But also, there's the other side, because each one of these accents has positives and negatives. Oftentimes, Californians are thought of as, kind of cool or whatever, but, cool in the uneducated level. So, skater cool.
Oh, my God.
Surfer cool. Not the really educated hyper surfers we have today. I'm talking about 1970s, 80s.
Surf boys.
There was a lot. Yeah, surf boys. Yeah. So I'm not a surf boy. I'm not a skater boy. I'm not cool. I'm just hobby. So.
I mean, really, all of these. Funny enough, I just watched this. I think it's a newer movie because it featured George Clooney and Anna Kendrick. It's called In the Air, where George Clooney plays a firing agent. Basically, he gets sent to all of the companies all over America to fire their employees.
Wow.
On behalf of the company, he makes a lot of money doing that. And Hendrick was a fresh college graduate who's very smart and developed this system to help companies hired employees remotely.
Wow.
They had this really interesting conversation in the airport where George Clooney is trying to tell Anna Kendrick from experience which line of security check you should go after to have a shorter time, for searching and stuff. And he was basically looking at everybody in different lanes getting their security check. He's like, oh, you shouldn't do this, shouldn't go to that, but they will do this. Oh, look, there's the Asian people, you did this. He said a lot of stuff that is really inappropriate. And then Anna Kendrick goes, that's racist. And then George Clooney, the character, Ryan said in the movie, not me, he said, my mom just calls them stereotypes. It's faster.
Oh, wow.
It was, of course, it was meant as a joke. It's a line in the movie. A lot of the times these stereotypes help people make a quicker judgment about the person they're meeting. But if you really get to know those people, we know people from, for example, Guangxi province that are super south, and they're, the way they talk and the way they approach problems, it's very just clear, decisive. There's a red or wrong, black or white for them all the time. And then usually people are like, oh, I thought people from there a little more, they like to be a little more detailed, they'll take more time. So I'm not one for making judgment about where someone is from, but I know people do. Let's try to, look beyond that and get to know the person.
Absolutely. For us, within our own countries, yes, there are some biases. But the real linguistic racism comes from people who are properly othered. So we're talking about people who have been from another country oftentimes.
Yes.
And in America, there are people from all over the world, a lot of people from all over the world, and their name, there have been studies that show that just their name on the application will influence their hireability. Especially in the past, it's getting better now. You've done it.
Yeah.
What do you mean you did that?
I did that. I tried to, I remember when we first got to the United States, we were looking for internships. Of course, I go by Alex just to make it easier for myself, not just for other people's convenience. It's also easier for myself because I think I told the story of how nerve-wracking it is for me to wait for my name to be called in hospitals or government offices. But when I was writing my name on the resume, I think I used my Chinese name for a couple of times, and it was either from a school counselor or whatever faculty member or staff member, or from friends or online articles that tell you how to get an internship, what are the things to do and not to do.
Cubanos nominados en diferentes categorías. Como cometían Eric Alejandro Iglesias y Mapón con el disco El Alimento. Camilo Camacho con Pakistánico Excellent con el tema Banana. Patricio de Rivera con African Tales y Arturo Sandoval con el disco Demon Soul. Felicitaciones, todos somos cubanos. Gracias por acompañarnos en nuestra emisión informativa desde el estudio de actores que estuvo en la asistencia digital. Con la redacción de Tecsun, Paul Rodríguez. Producción y edición Elena Rodríguez. Voz informativa Ricardo Espinosa. Punto de la de nuestro reencuentro informativo.
江红也和黄鹤楼有关啊，这便是岳飞写的《满江红登黄鹤楼有感》。岳飞从军20载，驻守鄂州，也就是现在的武昌7年，是南宋政权在这里的最高军政长官之一。4次北伐从这里起兵，人生篇章从这里起笔。襄阳6州大捷。年仅32岁的岳飞被封为武昌郡开国侯，但他并未沉醉于功名利禄，而是念念不忘北伐大业，不断上奏朝廷，要求收复中原失地，却屡屡被朝廷拒绝。一天，悲愤中的岳飞登上满目疮痍的黄鹤楼，北望中原，写下了这样一首词：满江红登黄鹤楼有感，遥望中原，荒烟外许多城郭。想当年，花遮柳户，
凤楼楼阁。万岁山前朱翠道，澎湖殿里笙歌作。到而今铁骑满交溪，风尘恶。兵安在，高峰恶；民安在，田沟壑。看江山如故，千村寥落。何日请缨提锐旅，一边直渡清河洛。却归来，再续汉阳游。
الرئيس الصيني شي جين بينج على أهمية إنتاج البذور الزراعية وشدد على الدور الحاسم للبذور الصينية في ضمان الأمن الغذائي للبلاد خلال جولة تفقدية لمختبر خليج ياتشو للبذور في محافظة هاينان بجنوبي الصين قام بها في 10 من إبريل عام 2022 وقال الشي إنه لا يمكن حماية الأمن الغذائي للصين إلا عندما تكون موارد البذور في أيدينا مشددا على أهمية ضمان تحقيق الاكتفاء الذاتي في موارد البذور والسيطرة عليها بصورة أفضل. انتهت فقرتنا هذه فقرة يد بيد. واصل وتعود إليكم الزميلة دعاء ماجد تقدم لكم الفقرة القادمة من برنامج المجتمع والحياة. ابقوا معنا.
Конжи по форме напоминают картошку, она полая, а по бокам круга проделаны небольшие отверстия, от 4 до 6. Туда вкладываются деревянные брусочки, чтобы во время кручения издавался звук. Затем игрок натягивает веревку на 2 палочках, поднимает над головой и подкидывает конжу. Цель игры — крутить быстрее и дольше других соперников. Немаловажную роль играл звук, издаваемый снаряд. Преимущественно в игре участвовали дети всех возрастов. Игра очень способствовала физическому развитию детей и скорости реакции. Уже при династии Мин, а это с 3 по 5 век, коктейли становятся излюбленной забавой при дворе. А при династии Тан 7 века и уже с 10 века коктейли приобретают неслыханную популярность. В каждом дворце при династии Тан были установлены качели и считались игрой полубогини. Придворные девушки много проводили времени на качелях, играя в словесные игры. У Тecsun благодаря качелям вырождается акробатика. Это уже не просто развлечение девушек при дворе, а способ поддержать физическое здоровье мужчин, развивать выносливость и гибкость. Летом и осенью устраивались показательные выступления. На это зрелище приходили посмотреть все, от крестьян до императора и его наложниц. Перед началом на воду ставили 2 корабля. На носу каждого устанавливали качели. Затем барабанами созывали зрителей и объявляли о начале выступления. Акробаты медленно раскачивали качели и приступали к трюкам и всяческим высотам. Они крутились в воздухе, прыгали в воду, делали сальто и так далее. В выступлениях участвовали молодые физически развитые мужчины, часто из армии императора. В развитии будущего спорта эти выступления сыграли важную роль в китайской истории. Считается, что победы в спортивной гимнастике и акробатике китайским спортсменам обеспечивает именно историческая любовь к качели. Выпускать воздушные змеи в небо — исконно китайское занятие. Игра поистине с очень давней историей. Раньше змей был не бумажным, а деревянным. Сохранились описания о том, как деревянный змей горит в воздухе. Со времени изготовления первого деревянного змея прошло уже более 2400 лет. И тогда каким-то образом его запускали в небо. При династии Восточная Хань, а это с 25 по 2020 годы нашей эры, 台湾地区前领导人马英九也表示，台湾局应调整台湾的路线，以对话取代对抗，以谋和消灭战争。在刚才的视频当中，我们看到包括国民党在内
是芳草萋萋鹦鹉洲，日暮乡关何处是？烟波江上使人愁。经典与流传的是诗心，诗心一个愁，愁上黄鹤楼。黄鹤楼是李白的，诗仙登上黄鹤楼，极目四眺，豪情万丈。登上题诗，却发出吹号的播报。沉吟良久，发出感叹：眼前有景到不得，吹号题诗在上头。恨不能一拳捶碎黄鹤楼，一脚踢翻鹦鹉洲。黄鹤楼上歌匾，修辞里留名。黄鹤楼是孟浩然的，烟花3月地之万里，老友李白在此送他下扬州。站在黄鹤楼上，放眼大江东去，想把黄鹤楼作为礼物送给孟浩然。孟浩然也觉得黄鹤楼是个告别文友的好诗句，并在这里呢题诗西登江上黄鹤楼，遥爱江中鹦鹉洲。对孟浩然这位湖北人来说，黄鹤楼下三别离，土地此物最相宜。黄鹤楼是白居易的，它不是送别，而是会客。在接受卢崔题目的宴请时，谈到江边黄鹤古石楼，豪志华颜带尾流。土司暖囊云水冷，上正清翠管弦诗。白华浪片头头似，红叶凌冷鹦鹉洲。人之平生未行知。
好像连他们自己的行政人员也要跟年关其实，是不敢轻举妄动的。真的想要春暖花开的话，大陆方面已经送出了很大的善意，台湾这边你就赶快做就是了。如果你只是怕被别人说是要搞对抗，只是想表演一下你有善意，骨子里你还是想阻挡两岸交流，或甚至还会有人想像过去3年一样，还想用疫情来搞歧视，来操弄抗中保台，你就只会继续升高台湾的民怨，帮你增加更多的讨厌度而已。
看来民进党当局呢还是有私心、有幕后的政治考量的。一直以来呢，一直是有态度没有行动。虽然说似乎是放了一些软话，有一些表面上的善意，但是在背后呢却没有采取任何有效的行动。这怎么可能去说服民众让人民服气呢？那我们再来看他对南华人士的打压呢，就可以看出他根本不想在两岸关系上有什么好的推动和作为。而且到具体的两岸政策上呢，蔡英文和赖清德的意见不一致，就有民进党内的政治争斗。所以说，是不是民进党当局整体的两岸政策，接下来是没有办法抱有良好期待的？
我觉得是这样的。其实无论是蔡英文还是赖清德，从他过去做的一些事情来看，包括从他最近的态度来看，我想未来我们是没有办法抱有太乐观的期待的。虽然从表面上看，可能蔡英文和赖清德在具体的表现上可能会有一点点的差别，但是我想那个面上的差别，理子上对他们两个是一致的。现在台湾当局整个在主导两岸政策的还是蔡英文。为什么这样讲？首先站在赖清德的角度来讲，虽然大家都觉得说赖清德代表民进党参选2024可能性最大，赖清德现在也是民进党的党主席，但是赖清德毕竟。
جاهای مربوط به روابط خارجی ها با سایر کشورهای اسلامی و غیر اسلامی دارند موضوعی که مطرح شده بود
چند تشخیص بود غیر از تحویل که گفته بودن که یک تینکری که مطرح کرده بودن موضوع بسته شدن سفارت عربستان در افغانستان مثلا موضوع بود که مربوط میشد بر روابط دیپلماتیکی که عربستان با طالبان داشته یا میخواد داشته یا برنامه‌های پلن‌هایی که میخواد داشته باشه. موضوع دیگر تهدیداتی که شدن از طرف العظیم یا از طرف IOCP که مطالبی که مطرح شدن یک فبرایر
24, 26 hours. Then in the 38th hour, the cyber police soldier had heard his son's voice calling for help. "Oh man!" he screamed. "Dad? Is that you?" "I told you the people, if you were still alive, you'd come find me. You promised you'd always be there for me, and you did it, Dad." A resolute father is honored to keep his promise to his beloved son. The son along the way to reveal life and freedom. This story always reminds me of events that took place early one morning, nearly 2,000 years ago. Our Heavenly Father rolled away a much more significant story that kept an even greater promise. When he rolled away that story from the sepulchre and raised his beloved son back to life, he brought to everyone who believes eternal life and true freedom in Christ. And the good news is, he's still in the business of rolling away stones.
Debating, and they can't clarify this. He said, and so they said, oh, Chinese is the most spoken. No, English is the most spoken. And they're both right. Actually, it just depends on how you define what. I always wonder, now that China's becoming, the economic powerhouse that it is today, and it has a lot more international influence, soft power, like, do you think that in the future there will be more people speaking Chinese as a second language, as a learned language?
Can I be a little more nerdy about that?
Oh yeah, please do.
So when we say second language, means that people in this country all speak this, or they all learn this as another language apart from their mother tongue, from their native language. For example, English in China, even if one day that the number of people that speak English goes up to a really high level, it is still not a second language because it's not a skill. It is called, for Chinese people who speak English from attending schools where there are English classes, this is an acquired language. So it's different from second language. For example, you would say that in Malaysia, or let's say in Singapore, that, English is the first language, Chinese is second language, and there's other local languages that are third or fourth language because it's official, like there's signs and everything. But in China, the only official language is Mandarin Chinese. So for some people from Guangdong province, from Hong Kong, then their second language is Cantonese, or the other ways around. Their first language is Cantonese, and Mandarin is their second language, but English will be an acquired language for them. And I do hope that it will get to that day for English in China and then Chinese overseas, because I didn't realize, maybe because of my coworkers in Singapore, we all talk to each other, and the work we do is all in English. I just assume that, or I don't think about them speaking Chinese, but then I was having one-on-ones with them the other day, and then two of them they started to speak in Chinese, and I was like, oh my god, your Chinese is awesome. And that's how they felt about it. I hope they're not offended.
Or even like mom taught me this. What are you talking about?
Yeah, and then one of the new writers that we had, she was actually able to, she's like, I have no problem reading or listening to Mandarin Chinese. It's just that if you ask me to express myself fully, it's probably easier for me to do it in English. I think it is very possible that Chinese becomes a little more popular as a second language. And I have all of my hopes on all these, expatriates who live in China, who speak sometimes better Chinese than I do. I put all my hopes on them. So, oh my god, there are people who speak such good Chinese. I saw this video on Douyin, and I would like to find it, and I don't know if there's a way for us to share media type rather than audio with our listeners.
Sure,
there was this professor, I think he's American, and when he was asked the question, like a random question, even if it was not random, even if it was rehearsed, I still would be super, super impressed because he quoted.
还能获得荣誉证书。那么，在我国各地历史文化积淀深厚的景区很多，而类似于滕王阁和三孔景区的特别之处，在于它们能与经典书籍或文章紧密联系起来。对于落霞与孤鹜齐飞，秋水共长天一色，有朋自远方来，我以乐乎等千古名句，很多人都已耳熟能详。好，接着我们一起来重温唐代诗人王勃的千古名篇《滕王阁序》。《滕王阁序》，王勃。南昌故郡，洪都新府，星分翼轸，地接衡庐。因三江而带五湖，控蛮星而引瓯越。物华天宝，龙光射牛斗之墟，人以地灵。
Vizează peninsula, face orientarea Lucian Acuzați plagiatul și grasa naturului romane la Centrul European de Liberă Circulație, o sinteză de la Parlamentul semnată de Călăbuca.
Deputații Sferi și cei neafiliați membri ai dreptei au încercat în listă de informă de șeful Atelierului României la spațiul de liberă circulație Schengen, plagiat la care a stat de doctorat. Liderul USR, Cătălin Drulă, a afirmat că ceea ministrul la conducerea NEI a reprezentat o vulnerabilitate pentru România. Avem atât să facă o nouă moțiune împotriva lui Bode după cea din octombrie. Atunci vă avertizam că vom rata înrămâna lui Lucian Bode și că este un act de patriotism să votați acea moțiune și să-l demitem. Nu v-ați găsit patriotismul și între timp am ratat cel mai mult. Ministrul Lucian Bode a calificat demersul opoziției ca fiind un atac politic concertat și a atras atenția că în document se face referire doar o singură dată la Ministerul de Interne. El a subliniat că teza sa de doctorat a respectat toate reglementările și standardele.
특히 재판에 선 나훈이 고명은 2010년 7월 열린 양권의
So be understood.
Yeah, exactly. I see a lot of materials online nowadays. It's like, oh, like, for example, the same word. Like, if you say water, people won't understand. You have to say water. And then, the kids, because I had friends of my own age when we were all learning English doing the same thing. They were like, oh, you have to, like, American English sounds like this. You have to say, or you have to say poor and bored, and she was so hung up on that idea. A cada rama de gobierno prohíbe que cada rama suma los poderes de las demás.
Del mismo modo que John Locke fue la principal, el barón de Montesquieu influyó sobre los próceres sobre la necesidad de que la monarquía fuera ilegal, estableciéndolo expresamente en el texto de la Constitución.
Los forjadores de la Constitución prohibieron la adjudicación de títulos nobiliarios en el artículo 1 de la sección 10 de la misma.
Les hablamos
Tatiana Riquelme
y Bruno Tócaros.
Radio Martí presentó Estados Unidos en Martí. Un segmento especial acerca de la historia de los Estados Unidos de América. Radio Martí, siempre contigo.
Receiver with us to 9.350 megahertz. That's 9.350 megahertz. 9.350 megahertz. We'll begin operation on that frequency in a few moments.
to permit caning as punishment for violent crimes. Its writer, Senator Dwayne St. Nicholas, says the purpose of the bill is to curb the U.S. territory's increasing crime rate. Mr. St. Nicholas says he would like corporal punishment to be applied to adults in criminal justice with the use of a rod.
In the United States, there are 19 states that have corporal punishment legal to punish school-age children. And we see that if corporal punishment is permissible in schools to rectify the wrong of a school-age child, I'm pretty sure it would be good enough to rectify an adult found guilty of a heinous crime. It says it in the Bible as well, you know, spare the rod, spoil the child.
The bill proposes a maximum caning of 24 strikes. 2 ambulances have been destroyed in an arson in the north of New Caledonia. A total of 3 vehicles used in the health sector were set on fire in a parking area in Portimao. The damage has caused disruption to services and forced the deferment of patient appointments. The public broadcaster La Premier says a suspect has been taken into custody for questioning. A Cook Islands government official has been convicted of drink driving in Rarotonga's criminal court. The head of the Ministry of Cultural Development, Anthony Tudua, was reported as just under the legal blood alcohol limit in September last year. Caleb Fotheringham has more.
Mr. Tudua was fined $450 New Zealand and was disqualified from driving for 12 months. Cook Islands News reported Mr. Tudua was also originally charged with careless driving, but this was withdrawn by the Crown.
And it really works? How is China of the past different from the present? Get all the answers to your questions by visiting China Plus Audiobooks. Access a whole new world of audiobooks on our website at chinaplus.cri.cn/podcast. Explore the philosophy, spirit, and story of the Chinese. His whole wide world of sports.
Tecsun.